It began as an ordinary Saturday at 24/7 Kettles, a high-end watch boutique hidden on the third floor of an office block in Richmond. But at 3:15 p.m. on May 25, 2024, two men posing as customers were buzzed inside. Within minutes, they attacked 27-year-old manager Oliver White, zip-tying him before fleeing with more than £1.1 million in luxury watches. None were insured, and none have ever been recovered. What makes this case even more tragic, less than 24 hours later, White was found dead in woodland near Shepperton, Surrey. The coroner was told his death was by suicide, and it was as a direct result of the robbery. As detectives dug in, the case grew darker. The boutique had no shopfront, operated mostly on Instagram, and held vast uninsured stock. Soon, investigators alleged it wasn't truly run by its named owners, Connor Thornton and Joe Riley, but controlled from behind the scenes by a businessman tied to the Kinahan Cartel and his son, using the store as a front for organised crime. Maurice Fred Saenz was born in the mid-1960s into Britain's travelling community, raised in a world of traders and caravan-site deals. He never learned to read or write, but he made up for it with sharp instincts and an eye for opportunity. As a kid he hustled, cleaning windows, taking odd jobs, saving every penny. Those savings bought his first scrap of land, which he flipped for a profit, then another and another. Before long, he'd built a small empire of caravan parks, rising not through education or paperwork, but through grit, memory, and deal-making savvy. By the early 2000s, Saenz had reinvented himself as a businessman, investing heavily in caravan parks across England. He presented himself as a self-made millionaire, the owner of multiple parks and holiday home sites. These parks were marketed as idyllic retirement communities, quiet places where older residents could downsize and enjoy rural life. His expanding empire brought him substantial wealth and a degree of social prestige. But behind the glossy image of a successful park owner, growing allegations of intimidation and criminal associations cast a dark shadow over his operations. As Saenz expanded his caravan park portfolio, residents across several sites began accusing him of abusive and rogue practices. Starting in the early 2000s, Saenz, often alongside his business partner James Crickmore, acquired multiple mobile home parks across the country. Almost immediately, complaints surfaced. At Ladycroft Park in Oxfordshire, which Saenz purchased in 2001, mostly elderly residents reported harassment and heavy-handed tactics aimed at forcing them out. According to Sheila Austin, a homeowner who led the resistance, Saenz would block attempts to sell their mobile homes by refusing to approve new buyers and issuing threats. Under this pressure, 30 homeowners at Ladycroft sold their mobile homes to his company at rock-bottom prices, simply to escape the abuse. One home, valued at around £50,000, was sold for only £10,000, a devastating loss for the retired couple who owned it. After acquiring these properties cheaply, Saenz company would demolish the old units and replace them with new ones, which could then be sold for substantial profit. The remaining 25 residents banded together and took Saenz to court in 2005. Facing legal action, he agreed to an out-of-court settlement, £75,000 in damages, and a legally binding promise not to threaten, abuse, or harass residents, nor obstruct the sale of their homes. Saenz later insisted he paid the money only to compensate people for living amid renovations, and denied ever harassing anyone. He sold Ladycroft Park soon after. Around the same time, similar patterns appeared at other parks owned by Saenz and Crickmore. At Hardwick Bridge Park in Norfolk, residents described being terrorised at all hours. One woman said agents of Saenz banged on her door early in the morning, ordering her to leave. Many victims requested anonymity out of fear of reprisals. The situation grew so serious that it was raised in Parliament. During a 2012 debate on mobile home law reform, Member of Parliament Eleanor Lang directly criticised Saenz, saying residents were frightened of his actions and that he had made their lives a misery. Another MP added, "If anyone is not a fit and proper person to run a park, it is Mr. Maurice Saenz, who has a long track record of abusing those who live on the sites he owns." Under increasing scrutiny, UK authorities finally took legal action in 2013. Maurice Saenz and James Crickmore were prosecuted for harassing residents of one of their parks. Their company, Leisure Parks Real Estate, which operated Medina Park in Whippingham on the Isle of Wight, used intimidation and sale blocking tactics similar to those seen at Ladycroft. Rather than fight the charges, Saenz and Crickmore pleaded guilty to multiple offences under the Caravan-Sites Act, legislation designed to protect mobile home residents. At a Crown Court hearing in March 2013, the company admitted 11 charges, including intimidating residents and interfering with potential home sales. 8 victims from the Isle of Wight Park gave testimony detailing how they had been pressured to sell or blocked from doing so. The court ordered the company to pay penalties that included £40,000 in compensation, distributed as £5,000 to each of the 8 victims, along with fines totalling £33,000. A further confiscation order of £275,000 was issued to strip the company of profits gained through its illegal tactics. While Saenz was fighting park residents in civil courts, he became embroiled in a separate scandal involving corruption in horse racing. In 2009, Maurice Saenz and his associate James Crickmore orchestrated a high-scale betting scheme. Working with a network of corrupt jockeys, they fixed races by ensuring certain horses would deliberately lose, allowing them to profit from betting against them. After a lengthy investigation, the British Horse Racing Authority, BHA, charged Saenz, Crickmore, and several collaborators in 2011. The inquiry examined 10 races across 5 different tracks between January and August 2009. The group allegedly bribed jockeys to hold back their mounts whenever Saenz and Crickmore had placed bets on those horses to lose. The BHA charged 4 jockeys, including well-known riders Kirsty Miltrick and Jimmy Quinn, with intentionally failing to ride to win. Saenz, Crickmore and 6 others were charged with conspiring in the scam. In December 2011, Saenz and Crickmore were found guilty, and the BHA issued 14-year bans preventing them from any involvement in horse racing, one of the harshest penalties in the authority's history. This was a civil disciplinary matter, not a criminal conviction, so Saenz did not receive a prison sentence. Throughout this period, Saenz lived a conspicuously wealthy lifestyle despite mounting legal scrutiny. He portrayed himself as a legitimate businessman, a caravan park mogul enjoying the rewards of hard work. Yet investigators increasingly suspected that illicit activities were bankrolling his lifestyle. He was frequently seen driving luxury cars and living in exclusive locations. Behind a public facade, multiple British law enforcement agencies, including the National Crime Agency and HM Revenue and Customs, were examining Saenz' financial dealings. Investigators suspected that Saenz and Crickmore were involved in large-scale tax fraud and money laundering, potentially linked to organised crime. Media reports claimed the pair were accused of conspiring to cheat the public revenue. Although these allegations did not always lead to criminal charges, they made it clear that Saenz was firmly on the radar of financial crime units. Saenz himself later acknowledged that he was under heavy investigation around 2017 to 2018. He claimed that police and tax officers raided his home, arrested him and his family, and demanded £50 million. Ultimately, that investigation ended without charges being filed. The full details remain unclear, as NCA and HMRC inquiries typically remain confidential unless they result in prosecution. Even as these probes continued quietly in the background, Saenz maintained a carefully crafted public persona. Promotional materials and his own statements portrayed him as a hard-working family man and community supporter. He regularly publicised charitable acts, such as buying food for local homeless groups and contributing to food banks during the Christmas season. Supporters occasionally praised these efforts, presenting him as someone setting an example for others. Saenz often portrayed himself as a charitable figure. At Christmas, he publicly handed out donations, wishing a happy holiday to homeless families and children without the means to receive gifts. He boasted that he and his associates had spent around £10,000 or £11,000 on toys and food. These displays later surfaced in court, where his defence team highlighted his generosity, presenting letters from various organisations praising his charitable work and positive traits. Yet these accounts stood in stark contrast to the other side of his life, a man closely associated with serious allegations of fraud and organised crime. Law enforcement agencies alleged that Saenz had become entangled with one of Europe's most notorious criminal networks, the Kinahan Cartel, an international syndicate involved in drug trafficking, money laundering, and gangland violence. Although Saenz was never charged with drug or violent offences, evidence from police and the Irish Criminal Assets Bureau, CAB, linked him to high-ranking associates within the cartel. CAB named Saenz in high court proceedings as an associate of the Kinahan network. Investigators said he had ties to the Byrne organised crime group in Dublin, effectively the Irish branch of the cartel, led by Liam Byrne. Intelligence suggested that Saenz provided the Byrnes with valuable perks and safe houses. He operated a UK luxury car business that supplied high-end vehicles to Liam Byrne and his brother David. The cars, often worth more than €100,000, were registered under Saenz' company rather than Byrne's names. As a result, when police stopped the brothers, the vehicles could not be seized as criminal assets. Saenz also reportedly helped Liam Byrne escape law enforcement pressure in Ireland in 2016. Under intense scrutiny from CAB and reeling from the Regency murder of his brother, Byrne fled Ireland. Saenz provided him with a house in Birmingham as a hideout, while Irish authorities moved to seize Byrne's Dublin home and other assets. Another key figure linked to Saenz was Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, the Kinahan cartel's UK boss and a brother-in-law of Liam Byrne. Operating from the Midlands, Kavanagh oversaw the cartel's British operations and was later convicted of trafficking £35 million worth of drugs into the UK. He received a 21-year sentence in 2022. Gardaí sources claimed Saenz had a close relationship with Kavanagh, placing him in proximity to the cartel's upper ranks. It's important to note that Saenz has never been convicted of any Kinahan-related offences. The information emerged through CAB proceedings and intelligence reports rather than a criminal trial. Even so, the scrutiny grew uncomfortable, and sometime in the early 2020s, he legally changed his name from Maurice Saenz to Fred Doe, seemingly to distance himself from his past. By 2023, however, mainstream media were openly referring to him as a businessman linked to the Kinahan cartel, with headlines reflecting these alleged associations. In May 2018, another incident brought Saenz back into the spotlight. What began as a day out at the prestigious PGA Golf Championship in Surrey ended with a high-speed police chase involving his £400,000 Rolls-Royce Phantom. According to court records, police at the event received complaints about his behaviour. When officers approached him in the car park, Saenz, who was driving while disqualified, sped off. During the chase, he drove on the wrong side of the road, tore through residential zones at twice the speed limit, went the wrong way around a roundabout, and narrowly avoided a head-on collision. A technical issue eventually forced officers to abandon the pursuit. The car was found shortly afterwards, abandoned, and Saenz was located later that day. Initially, he denied being the driver. He claimed he had been in the back seat with a woman and that a chauffeur was behind the wheel. He suggested that he had told the driver he did not want to stop because he didn't want to be caught in a compromising situation after recently reconciling with his wife. CCTV footage from the golf event, however, showed him getting into the driver's seat. Confronted with the evidence, he admitted to driving. In March 2020, Saenz was convicted of dangerous driving. He received an 8-month sentence suspended for 2 years, a 2-year driving ban, and a 3-month nightly curfew with an electronic tag. During sentencing, a revealing detail emerged about his declining circumstances. He told the court he no longer lived in the mansion associated with his public image. Instead, he was living in a mobile home on his daughter's property in Berkshire, saying the move was to help care for his ill grandson. Despite this quieter lifestyle, Saenz continued to post videos portraying himself as a family man, being unfairly harassed by authorities. In one clip, he filmed a bonfire for his grandchildren while police and fire crews responded, insisting they were being targeted because they were travellers. A separate controversy erupted in 2020 when Saenz purchased a greenfield plot on Eatonwick Road near the prestigious Eton College. Local residents soon realised who their new neighbour was. Saenz bulldozed trees and greenery, turning the picturesque field into what they described as an illegal scrapyard. Hundreds of old cars, vans, caravans, shipping containers, and piles of scrap metal appeared on the site. Homeowners complained that their properties had been devalued and rendered nearly unsellable. Public records showed that Saenz submitted only sporadic planning applications, and by 2025, he was under 3 separate enforcement investigations by Windsor and Maidenhead Council for unauthorised land use and tree removal. Controversy also followed the next generation. Saenz's son, using the alias Fred Doe Jr., made headlines in 2019 when an 18-carat solid gold toilet worth around £4.8 million was stolen from Blenheim Palace. The fully functional artwork, titled America by Maurizio Catalan, was removed in a 5-minute nighttime raid. For months the case remained unsolved, but arrests were eventually made. At Oxford Crown Court in March 2025, Fred Doe Jr. was found guilty of attempting to sell the stolen gold from the toilet. 2 accomplices were convicted of burglary for the theft, while a 4th man was acquitted. Evidence showed the group arrived in stolen cars, smashed into the palace, unbolted the heavy toilet, and dragged it away so quickly that their getaway vehicle snagged under its weight. As of 2025, at around 61 years old, Maurice Fred Sains remains a free and wealthy man, still involved in business. His story is unfinished, with the Kinahan cartel under international pressure, its leaders facing sanctions and global arrest warrants. The possibility remains that Sains' associates could one day catch up with him if investigators manage to tie him more directly to the organisation. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.